Good morning. I'm Sam Zutler. I'd like to talk to you this morning about my core beliefs. So, where do I start? I believe that people are inherently good. There is goodness, and even the darkest of souls, it is there. And what do I mean by inherently good? I believe that inherently good people seize problems that need attention, and then they go about finding solutions. Inherently good people want to make the world a better place for us. They treat everyone with dignity and respect. I think a great example would be our friend Karen Goodman, who we honored in memorial this week. But let me back up and tell you what my Jewish immigrant parents tried to teach me. They warned me to be very cautious about trusting people who were not Jewish. And as I was growing up, I believed them. Fortunately, as I grew into adulthood, I learned to question this counsel. When America entered World War II, I volunteered to join the U.S. Army Air Corps. During my training, I got to know young men from all over the United States, from all religions, ethnicities, and economic backgrounds. Learning together, living together, working together, we came to trust each other, respect each other, and really become good friends. I learned there are good people everywhere. Later in my life, my Geneva was diagnosed with early onset dementia, Alzheimer's disease. This began a new role for me as a caregiver for 19 years. I'm reminded of all the kindness and support I received from so many people, some of you here today. Friends, family, and co-workers provided food and companionship for Geneva at times I couldn't be at home. And for me, I found love and support from friends who listened as I expressed my loneliness and frustration. They cared for me. Once again, affirming my base belief that people are inherently good. Our world has lived through 2 years of COVID pandemic. During this time, there has been an opportunity for good people to come forth everywhere. I think about the doctors and nurses and other caregivers who have stepped up to care for the sick, often risking their own lives. In our daily lives, Donna and I have received kindness and support from our neighbors and friends and family. Someone grocery shopped for us. Someone brought us fresh eggs from the farm. A neighbor brought us food, everything from a bowl of soup to a turkey dinner with all the trimmings. We received calls from folks just checking in on us, and cards from people just saying hello. Good people seeing a need and responding. Good people showing love and kindness. So now, at age 99, I wish to leave a legacy for my grandchildren and their children, for a belief in a world of kindness, justice, and compassion. I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to know and love so many good people. Thank you.
I want to just take a moment to thank Charlotte, Gail, and then adding the dowel rod, George, for our Ukrainian flag, making this as a pulpit hanging. As as we express solidarity with the brave and beleaguered people of Ukraine. So the sermon I'm going to share today, I actually preached a version of it in my first year as minister here at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Fresno 7 years ago. I wanted to revisit it because our theme of worship this month is renewing faith, and I think we can't probably renew faith if we don't know what is faith. So for those who have joined us since that March day 7 years ago, and for those of us who can't even remember that March day 7 years ago, I'd like to begin by telling you an old story. It exists in many cultures, and it's actually been told around the world in many forms. It's a story that I think you can hear over and over because it is one of the world's great teaching stories. There is an old woman who is living in a village. She has lived a good life and has been very loyal to the chief. In appreciation for all she's contributed to the life of the villages, one day the chief of the village gives her a horse, a prize stallion. The neighbors, they gather round. Such good news, they proclaim. The old woman replies, good news, bad news. Who can say? The next day, the prize horse runs away. The neighbors gather round. Oh, such bad news, they proclaim. The old woman replies, good news, bad news. Who can say? The next day, the horse returns, bringing with it a whole herd of beautiful wild horses. The neighbors, they gather round. Such good news, they proclaim. The old woman replies, good news, bad news. Who can say? The next day, when the old woman's 18-year-old grandchild tries to tame the biggest and the most beautiful of the wild horses, they are thrown off and their leg breaks in several pieces. The neighbors gather round. Oh, such bad news, they proclaim. The old woman replies, and you can join me if you want, good news, bad news. Who can say? The next day, the army of a powerful warlord marches through the village, pressing all the young people of the village into the military service. They march off to a bloody battle from which none are expected to return. The grandchild of the old woman is spared, the only one spared because of their broken leg. Seeing the spared grandchild, the neighbors gather round. Oh, such good news, they proclaim. The old woman replies, good news, bad news, who can say? Now, I don't know this old woman's religion. I don't know this old woman's beliefs. But I do know this old woman's faith. This old woman has faith in the slow unfolding of life. Faith. Faith. Can you say that word for me? Faith. What is faith? Where does faith come from? James W. Fowler, a noted human development theorist, suggests that faith is perhaps very different from what we usually assume it to be. Fowler makes a distinction between religion, belief, and faith. They are three different things entirely. According to Fowler, religion is cumulative tradition. Religion is the shared shape and form of our deepest questionings. And notice, shared is emphasized. Religion And I know for some of us, religion is a scary word. It's a word that perhaps has hurt us. And even to hear it said, or even to say, oh, am I considering being part of a religion, is a really scary thing. So I want to acknowledge that. Now, religion is the stories, it's the songs, and the community rituals we create together to make meaning out of life. So, gathering on our Alluvial Avenue or virtual sanctuary on Sunday morning, lighting the chalice, singing a song of praise, breathing in peace, breathing out love, sharing our joys, sorrows, gratitudes, and concerns, lighting our candle of community and then our COVID deaths candle, sounding the meditation bowl, having that time of glorious silence, and then reflecting or praying together, and then singing Comfort Me, Consuélame in English and in Espanol. Religion is about what we do. Now, belief is different from religion. Belief is the holding of certain ideas about something. For instance, a belief that we need not believe alike to love alike. That's a belief. Or belief that diversity strengthens a community. Or a belief of something that we've discovered during this time of COVID, that there is a love holding you. There's a love holding all that you love. There is a love holding all. You rest in this love. Whereas religion is communal ritual and action, belief is an individual choice or decision. Although what we may choose to believe can be something taught within a religion, we still will have to claim it as our own. Belief is head-centered and engages the mind. Belief is about concepts and ideas. Belief is what we think. But faith reaches beyond concepts and ideas. Faith is an experience that goes beyond the mind. Faith engages all of our senses. Faith involves relationships between ourselves and others, ourselves and the world, and ourselves and that which is greater than us. Faith is our relationship with life itself. Faith is our relationship with life itself. Can you just say that with me? Faith is our relationship with life itself. So what does that mean? Sounds good. In her book, Faith, Trusting Your Own Deepest Experience, and I like that title, Faith, Trusting Your Own Deepest Experience, celebrated Buddhist teacher Sharon Salzberg expands on this understanding of faith. She writes, "One day, a friend called to ask if we could meet for tea. Knowing that I was writing a book from the Buddhist perspective about faith, she was confused and wanted to talk. 'How can you possibly be writing a book on faith without focusing on God?' she demanded. 'Isn't that the whole point?' Her concerns spoke to a common understanding we have of faith, that it is synonymous with religious adherence. But the tendency to equate faith with doctrine and dogma and then argue about terminology and concepts distracts us from what faith is actually about." Sharon Salzberg continues, "In my understanding, whether faith is connected to a deity or not, its essence lies in trusting ourselves to discover the deepest truths on which we can rely. Faith is not a commodity we either have or don't have. It is an inner quality that unfolds as we learn to trust our own deepest experience. Faith is an inner quality that unfolds as we learn to trust our own deepest experience. As Unitarian Universalists, we begin with us, with our experience, not someone else's that someone else figured out and is labeled as T, but the truth. Poet David White writes, "It doesn't interest me if there is one God or many gods. I want to know if you belong or feel abandoned. If you know despair or can see it in others. I want to know if you are prepared to live in the world with its harsh need to change you. If you can look back with firm eyes saying, 'This is where I stand.' I want to know if you know how to melt into the fierce heat of living, falling toward the center of your longing. I want to know if you are willing to live day by day with the consequence of love and the bitter, unwanted passion of your defeat." This journey of faith, this learning how to unfold into a trust gained by and developed through experience, this slow melting into the fierce heat of living, is central to Unitarian Universalism. Permit me to share a little history to illustrate this. In order to do so, we need to pretend like we're turning back the clock almost 300 years. In 1734, this amazing thing happened in the American colonies. Churches up and down the East Coast were gripped by an explosive, charismatic, fundamentalist Christian religious revival called the Great Awakening. The Great Awakening was influenced by this dynamic and fiery preacher named Jonathan Edwards. Edwards was a gifted orator, and he preached hell and damnation, fire and fear, as few had before him or since. Apparently, so great was his personal power, so inspiring was his style of sermons, it seemed as if the Spirit of God was pouring out of his church in Northampton, Massachusetts, into all of the American colonies. It inspired hundreds and hundreds of ministers to take to the open road throughout the colonies in an effort to spread salvation. This Great Awakening turned into a mass religious experience, a mass religious panic. Thousands upon thousands of children, teens, and adults flocked to tents and open fields. There, they would hear itinerant preachers proclaim the need to believe, the need to be saved, the need to be washed in the blood of the Lamb, the need to allow the Spirit of Jesus Christ to take control of their lives here and now and forevermore. Kind of sounds like Fresno sometimes. These itinerant preachers stirred up passions. They whipped up emotional excesses and fed on the kind of fervor that only occurs in group hysteria. The goal was to generate a moment of ecstatic conversion. In an instant, the Holy Spirit would descend, the heart would be broken open, the grip of sin would be snapped, and the person would be one of the faithful. In an instant, all would be well. Thankfully, there was a group of liberal Christian Unitarian-leaning ministers in Massachusetts who looked at this raw emotion, this instant gratification, and said, "This is not faith that these preachers teach. This is emotionalism run amok." And so, ministers such as Ebenezer Gay, Charles Chauncey, and Jonathan Mayhew I kind of want to wear their wigs. These ministers began to quietly speak out against what was raging in the country, in the colonies all around them. They began to model another way of experiencing faith. From their pulpits, they bravely taught that faith wasn't something that descends from on high in a moment of heightened emotion to instantly and forever change a person. Faith isn't about conversion. Faith isn't an instantaneous transformation that makes everything clear and sure. Faith isn't even something given to a person by God. No, they said. Faith is a journey, a slow unfolding. A soul isn't saved, it is cultivated carefully over time. A soul is shaped through practice, education, life experience, the arts, and the sciences. A soul is shaped by relationships and love and loss. Reason and consideration are all necessary ingredients in which a soul slowly grows into maturation. Faith takes you through many changes. Faith takes you through many stages. And so these liberal ministers laid the foundation for our Unitarian Universalist belief in faith development, in the slow nurturing and unfolding of our human potential over the course of a lifetime. For some, this is a very different approach to faith, writes Sharon Salzberg. Then she makes this interesting observation. In Pali, the original language of the Buddhist texts, the words usually translated as faith, confidence, or trust is saddha. Saddha literally means, and I love this, to place the heart upon. To place the heart upon. To have faith is to offer one's heart or give over one's heart to an ongoing experience. Salzberg continues, in Pali, faith is a verb, an action, as it is also in Latin and Hebrew. Faith is not a singular state that we either have or don't have. Faith is the willingness to take the next step, to see the unknown as an opportunity, to launch a journey. Faith is the animation of the heart that says, I align myself with the potential inherent in life. I give myself over to that potential. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to try. I wonder if this is the kind of faith that Ukrainian President Zelensky draws on in his extraordinary defiance of Putin's despotic evil. Faith is an animation of the heart that says, I align myself with the potential inherent in life. I give myself over to that potential. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to try. I wonder if this is the kind of faith that is fueling the Ukrainian people's defiantly determined pushback against Putin's machine of death and destruction. Faith is the animation of the heart that says, I align myself with the potential inherent in life. I give myself over to that potential. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to try. And so, my dear ones, we ask, is this good news? Or is this bad news? Who can say? Bendito sea, blessed be. Amen.